Hi, welcome to What the Flick. We are about to spoil the shit out of Blade Runner 2049, starting with the fact that there are flying cars.
We did a non-spoiler one. You can go watch that one, but this is the spoiler one, so no complaints about spoilers.
Right, also, wait, take the spoiler.
Right, also, a note about spoilers. Really, like, get over it. I mean, stop looking at reviews if you don't want to be spoiled.
Why are you even here?
Don't say that, my
We're going to spoil things now.
Anyway, it's
Go ahead. What was your big spoiler you want to talk about?
it's his sled.
Nice callback.
Always funny.
We have hologram Grand Moff Tarkin in here.
So yes, Sean Young returns, a motion captured, looking exactly like the first movie with those amazing lips, Sean Young.
And that great dress.
And the hair and the whole 9 yards. So that happens.
That should not be a surprise to anyone.
No, I suppose not, but you know, I didn't know it was happening.
Okay, so how do they do it? It's her. And then they put all the stuff back on her.
No, I think it's her like being Andy Serkis, and then they just create they Xerox the version for the first movie and overlaid it.
I'm not sure it's actually even her on the set.
It might not be.
It might not be. I think that's somebody else completely on set as the kind of body motion, as the motion capture, but they credit her because they're using her image as that character.
I bet she's doing face and voice.
Maybe.
Because she has to say different lines.
Yeah.
Right?
She has to say, yeah, she did.
I don't know, you know, she tells us it's all bullshit.
She's committed to, I totally had nothing to do with it. I met her Sunday night. So, you know.
Here we go with another name dropping stuff.
We don't get invited to these parties, only Ben does.
Martin Landau had to die, thanks. So,
man, you're ruthless.
And so she came up to me, and it was exciting. You know, I'm talking to Sean Young, it was super cool. And I said, you know, hey, so what are you up to, right? And she was good, man. She did not mention it. Like, so she's
a little movie coming out.
Yeah, right. She was like, you shouldn't say like, I'm in something. I got something opening Friday. Well, don't worry.
It's a secret.
Yeah, it's a secret. So she committed to the committed to the secret.
I think the big spoiler here is that Ryan Gosling's character is a replicant, who then thinks for a while that he's a human being, and then finds out that, oh no, he is a replicant.
But you know, it's just, would he have been a human being even if what he thought was true had been true? He just would have been a reproduced replicant.
Mixed race, right?
Well,
yeah,
right. So the dichotomy of what they're doing with this film versus the first one is, the first one, and I'm talking specifically about Scott's vision for it, not the original release. The first film is Deckard is a replicant who doesn't know he's a replicant. And by the end of the film, he at least has an inkling, right? If not outright knows. But at the beginning of the film, he doesn't know. And Edward James Olmos is his handler. And what the giveaway is the unicorn origami, which is the reference that Gant knows the dream that he had, right? Because the dream sequence of the unicorn,
in the same way that Deckard knows Rachel's memories about the bush.
Right. So Deckard's a replicant. So if Ryan Gosling, who knows he's a replicant from the beginning, it's not that he thinks he's human, it's that he thinks he may have been a natural born.
Oh right, yes. The other big spoiler is that Rachel has given birth.
Right. So he wouldn't have been mixed race. He would have been just the first ever offspring of a couple of.
But does he know that Deckard's a replicant, or does he think Deckard was human?
Apparently, Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott to this day argue about this, whether or not Deckard is really a replicant. And in fact, a friend of mine asked me after I saw the movie, he was like, "So does this movie resolve once and for all whether he's a replicant?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." Well, no. I don't know.
I think it absolutely does. I think it does.
But Ryan Gosling says, you know, I just took it when he says, "I'm not here to bring you in." Like that would be bring him in because he's a replicant. A replicant wouldn't bring in.
But he's still alive though.
Right, like the guy that he kills in the beginning of the movie.
Right, but
I mean the whole thing.
So replicants can jizz?
Hang on.
I mean that's what we're talking about here, right?
Hold on. First of all, it doesn't matter if Gosling knows whether or not Deckard's a replicant, right? But I think that the movie shows us, at the very least, at least Jared Leto's character thinks that Deckard is a replicant, because the whole thing, and so does the police captain, Because if replicants can procreate with each other,
right,
that is the revolution that's going to happen.
Right.
So
not,
I think
not if a human can impregnate a replicant. That's, I mean, I don't know. That seems strikes me as far less interesting.
That's what I thought the suggestion was, though, is that Deckard's not a replicant and that he impregnated Rachel.
I thought that's what I got
and
too.
Ryan Gosling is mixed.
At least what I firmly believe
both.
what Villeneuve is doing here, and what the scriptwriter has done here, is they're taking the version of the original Blade Runner where Deckard is a replicant, where you're supposed to believe that he's a replicant.
So this is Jurassic Park. They found a way to multiply.
Kind of, right? And so my frustration that I kind of alluded to is that the idea of these artificial beings wanting to procreate and be responsible for their own destiny and expand and evolve and take their place among the stars and kind of do what Homo sapiens may have done to the Neanderthals, is that material has been covered in Battlestar Galactica's, the Battlestar Galactica reboot and Westworld, right? In very much like, hey, we don't want to just be slaves. We want to have our own destiny. We want to take charge of our own lives.
Who's to say that we're artificial?
Right. Which, okay, sure, you can explore that here, but God, like, what's frustrating is you can see that those two TV series are very much inspired by the groundwork laid by Blade Runner. And so to go back with Blade Runner and revisit that, it's like, man, you guys needed to do this 20 years ago. That's really the issue, right? That's where that's where I take points away, is that it's very effective. I think they do really good work here, but it's a little late. Like, they needed to get back to this a long time ago.
Well, I would say in their yes, I hear you. In their defense, though, they'd be like, hey, if they're following us, if we're the template here, then I don't care if they make it. We still get to have our version of it, and we certainly get to make our hundreds of millions of dollars.
There's also a scene that reminded me of Her, where Joy hires the human prostitute
to go inside
of her body and have sex with him.
So,
Mackenzie Davis.
The thing about the Joy story that I actually liked, and I thought this was the only thing that really approached the mystery of the first film, because the first film leaves you with enough of a hint. The final cut leaves you with this hint between the dream and the origami that you think, and also the way Harrison Ford's eyes are lit up in one particular scene. Because in the first film, all the replicants have this kind of orange glow, that golden glow to their eyes. And there's only one scene where Ford has that, where I actually hadn't noticed until I'd seen the movie on the big screen, where Rachel in the apartment asks him, if I ran, would you come for me? And he looks at her and says, I wouldn't, but somebody would. And in that moment, his eyes glow, and it's like, oh. And I didn't ever see that until I saw the movie on the big screen, right? Which is, I think, a little, going into the weeds, a little less on why it's important to see movies on the big screen, because it is a different experience. So with this film, the only time that you get anything approaching the mystery is the Joy storyline, in that she tells Gosling's character, Kay, to download her into the thing, and she's willing to die for him as she's in the little emitter as opposed to the mainframe. And you think, okay, she's got some self-direction, and she gives him a name, and she seems, maybe she's actually achieved this level of consciousness similar to what the replicants have. And then by the end of the film, you see the way she's been marketed and the way that ad talks to her, to him,
right?
And it's like, it's all bullshit.
And you're like,
and also
it's all just bullshit.
She's a product of the company that he's chasing after.
Right,
so I kept thinking, so is she just spying on him?
That's what I thought. I mean, I thought in this world, are we to believe that somehow they can't track him through that?
Yeah,
and she's on his side, though.
Because she even knows early on the Dutch.
I know they broke the antenna. But
no, but she knows early on about it. She goes, oh, I see you're a customer,
Right.
Yeah, because she hears the jingle on the phone.
Right. Which is Peter and the Wolf, which is, I think is it's an interesting choice, because Peter and the Wolf is a composition in which all of the instruments are representing organic living creatures. What? Yes. So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool.
I want to look up, I'm blanking on her name, yes, the Dutch actress who's such a badass.
She's so great in this.
She's like the right-hand woman to Jared
Leto, yeah. And Anna de Armas, I thought was great as the sort of virtual
Sylvia
girlfriend.
Hooks.
Sylvia Hooks, yes. I had only seen Anna de Armas in War Dogs, which is a terrible film.
She was also good. She was in Knock Knock, that Eli Roth movie where the two women go knock on the door. No, she's like magnetic and charming
Yes,
as
she is.
hell.
Yeah,
And
she's
she,
got
she
Yeah,
has a
she's
lot
great
of
in
range
this.
here because she does have to keep you guessing throughout the movie as to
Two big
her-
winners
yeah.
from this, I think, are Anna de Armas and Anna de Armas' agent.
Yeah.
No, I think things are going to be good for her. I
Yeah,
suspect.
and Mackenzie Davis, if you have not seen the San Junipero episode of Black Mirror, which is really great, she has an interesting appearance as well. And apparently, the pleasure models of 20, how many years? 30 years after the first movie, do not quite go for the full Daryl Hannah,
The Susie and the Banshee
extreme makeup. They've dialed it down to a
here's
more
another-
natural look.
Here's another question. Do you think that the dream artist, the one that's the daughter,
It is really
right?
the daughter.
Yeah.
I think that is really the daughter. Do you think that she actually has the condition?
No.
No.
Oh, no,
They
no,
just
no.
hide her away.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how they protect her and they keep her alive.
Yeah,
They hide her away. Yeah.
So a couple things. So this is going to be, Blade Runner can totally be used by climate change deniers, who are going to be like, look, in 2049 it snows in Los Angeles.
Yeah. In 2049, everyone's still going to the fucking off-world colonies.
Maybe it's
because this
nuclear
is a
winter.
shithole.
Maybe it's nuclear winter.
No, it may well be nuclear winter. It snows in San Diego. San Diego is just Los Angeles' garbage dump.
Right.
Right.
Which
Or
it kind of
still,
is now.
right?
I'm
It
kidding.
continues.
I'm kidding. We love you, San Diego. You're
we
right.
took the Chargers and they got the trash.
Yeah.
No, there was a
they
famine
won.
in the mid-20s. I would just point that out too.
Yeah, so I again, we was talking about this in the original. It was just so incredibly bleak. I thought the most interesting thing though about this was that so there is that nice thing about Gosling being, and I bought it too. I'm like, oh, he's their son. He's the, and I still get my head confused as to how then he found the thing in his. I guess that somebody else put that there, and he got that memory implanted, right?
Right. Well, yeah, the woman who made it, who
Right.
was
So
her
who
memory.
put the memory? She did.
She did.
She did.
And
She created
that really happened to her.
And the kid in the flashback is her with a boy's haircut.
With a
so that
boy's
really-
haircut.
Yeah, they put her in blue and they hid her away.
Which
Right.
means she doesn't have the
Condition.
because she would never have survived that environment.
That's right. Yeah. So she doesn't. No, I
Right, if
definitely
that's her
didn't.
memory. She never would have survived that filthy environment. So she actually doesn't. Well, right, she doesn't have that.
So it's
She's human.
So it's
She's
nice.
human.
Yeah.
Well,
she's.
Isn't she?
No,
she's half.
I don't think she's half.
No. I'm with you on half,
Hang
but
on.
they're not having it.
okay.
so-
she is the
It's
natural.
not interesting if Harrison
She
Ford
is-
is not a replicant.
She is a
Hampton
new life
Fancher will
form.
tell us.
Let's
She
ask
is
Hampton
she is a new life form in that
Right.
she is the natural born progeny of two replicants. That's
not
the deal.
interesting.
But even if she's the natural
That
born
is
progeny of one
interesting, though.
replicant, that's still unprecedented.
It-
It's
but
unprecedented, but it's way less interesting. Like then
Well-
humans could be like, all right, I'll take on replicant men. Human men would just take on replicant women and.
But I think it's the idea of like these are no longer machines merely to be
I
used
got
for
it.
your service. They
Sean
are
Young still had
organic
a kid.
creations. And
Except
it's,
that-
yeah.
it's a big deal either. I get it's a somewhat big deal.
But
either.
again, part of why it's less of a big deal is like the whole in that whole philosophical arguments is like, okay, sure, they're a new life form and they can recreate, but they could, Jared Leto could create enough of a scientifically minded replicant that they could just make other replicants. Like that's what the Cylons
Like
did.
they have ovaries.
Right. And so, well, no, or manufacture them.
Manufacture other
But they could manufacture them too.
And we
right?
did
And
have slaves in this country for centuries who were capable of reproduction. So it's not like
right.
having children suddenly gets you off the hook and makes people treat you
I
better.
think the only way it's interesting in any way is if two robots can get together and make a third robot. I mean,
Or
that's
if a
the,
human and a
but-
robot
and so-
can make a person.
not interesting. Not interesting. I'm throwing you out of
That's
you're out of the pitch
more
meeting.
interesting.
No, it's not.
But so when I'm talking about ground that's been covered before, that was the ground that Battlestar Galactica covered, was that they built robots that built more robots and went to war against humanity, and that's that whole story.
Don't the robots on Westworld start building more robots? Am I remembering that wrong?
Yes, that also is.
Yeah.
what
Like a
happened.
lathe. A lathe can make itself. It's
But
the
it was-
only machine that can make itself.
It was cool that we had the arc of Gosling thinking that he was, and then just isn't.
Right.
He's just a replicant, and he just turned out to be a kind of a good one, a dedicated one. But also, I don't think, and then he dies at the end, kind of. But we just saw Sean Young return, so I mean, the idea that
Right.
Ryan Gosling can't return because he's not that dead. He got stabbed.
Well, I'll tell you,
know?
the shock for me was that Harrison Ford didn't die.
That's
I
right.
thought, oh, well, this is gonna be another movie where he's like, all right, fine, I'll come back. I'll do your sequel,
But
but
you
you're
gotta
killing
kill
me.
me.
He didn't die, so if there's more, he'll be back. He could be back,
Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and let us know what you think, how wrong or right we are. Can't be known. Bye.